You are watching the Weekend Sports Kickoff right here on KNWT Channel 8. And welcome in to the Weekend Sports Kickoff. I'm Devin Albertson, joined by Trevor Mader, Jacob Blair, and next year General Manager Ryan Elliott. How's everybody doing this afternoon? Congrats, Ryan, on the new position for next semester.
Thank you. I'm excited. It's going to be a good semester. And, looking forward to making sure everything comes together the way we want it to. Hopefully some new things next semester and keeping this station running.
Yep, so we should be in good hands for next semester, but also a little bit changes over to the Bearcat Athletic Department as well. Andy Peterson named the interim athletic director for the time being. He's going to try to take over for Mel Churchma, at least temporarily, maybe permanently, if they remove the interim tag in the next few weeks, which I think they'll do. I think he's the right man for the job here. I'll kind of open up to the floor here. What do you guys think about Mr. Peterson being announced as the new athletic director for the interim basis for Northwest?
Well, at first when I read this, I kind of jumped over the interim part, and I just thought, oh, they're naming him the AD. And then when I went back and looked at it, I said, oh, okay, they're dubbing him the interim AD. To me, that shows that at least they feel like he's capable of doing this job for now until when's Mel actually retires? April 30th. So he won't take over until after Mel retires the interim until they hire somebody. Is that how that'll work? I understand.
Yes.
Right.
So to me, that says they think he's capable enough to do the job now. I don't know what would change between now and then, but I mean, really good for him and just happy for him. Here's a guy that has dedicated a lot of his time and effort to the athletic department. I think he's a good fit.
I'm just a little bit confused about that because I really hope that the university names him the athletic director at the end of this month, the full-time athletic director, because I think he would do a fantastic job. He's done a great job as the AD in charge of facilities for the last, 4 years? He's had that title. He's done a fantastic job with that. And, he talked a little bit about it on the coaches show yesterday about, all the people that have allowed him to be where he's at. And just, he's going to do an incredible job if he's named the full-time athletic director. So I say, just go ahead and do it at the end of April.
Yeah, he's been in charge of facilities since 2013.
Yeah, so 5 years.
Yeah, so he's been busy there. He's also been the women's golf coach since 2014. So there'll be an opening there. If he is named the athletic director, it's a big opening he'll have to fill, but it shouldn't be too bad there. So he's been with Northwest since 2003, pretty much as an athlete, and then ever since as a graduate assistant coach, assistant AD, women's golf coach. He's just been around for a long time here at Northwest. He's a Northwest guy, and I think he's the right man for the job going forward here. So I think he'll become the regular AD once the time kind of goes through. But you said the timeline was a little bit weird there with him being named interim.
Yeah, if they're going to name him the full-time AD, I'm just not sure why they would stick him with the interim tag for less than a month. That just doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
I mean, we're still a month away from Mel leaving. If they're going to hire outside of the program, which we haven't seen them do it in sports in the past, so would it be kind of weird to tag him the interim for a month when realistically they can still hire somebody between now and when Mel retires?
Yeah, I mean, realistically, the last time that they hired outside of the program, they hired a women's soccer coach outside of the program, but the last time outside of that they hired outside of the program was when they hired Mel to be the athletic director because he was technically not involved in the program anymore for a while. So, it's just interesting.
Yeah, and maybe nothing will come of it. Maybe they'll shed the interim tag by the end of April 30th. But I just find it kind of, with you, I'm a little confused by it because, so right now we have an athletic director and an interim athletic director.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I think it could also be because I'm pretty sure Mel's going on a 2-week vacation here before he retires. So,
and I saw Andy out there.
That's the way to go out.
Yeah, I saw Andy out there yesterday with the track meet that was in town. He was helping stuff there, so maybe it was just a qualification thing. That way, he could be in charge of that more than what Mel would be. Maybe it's just like a transition thing. So it's what they kind of have to do legally is to have him be in charge of some of that stuff. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe some of it's above our pay grade to understand, anyways. So.
And it's also possible that we're just reading way too much into it as well. So.
Definitely. And we'll transition to anything else.
It could just be that they're covering their bases in case the search takes longer and they think it will. I mean, that's a possibility too.
And then, of course, baseball and softball also were in action yesterday. Softball split with Pitt State. The baseball team won both games of doubleheader versus Central Missouri. It's 2 really good wins for the baseball team. UCM, always one of the better teams in the conference in baseball. They beat them in the first game in 10 innings, a walk-off win, and they dominated the second game, winning 8-3. So 9-8 and 8-3 for the baseball team. They got 3 o'clock tomorrow hopefully is what they're kind of hoping for versus Central Missouri, pending the weather. Right now the baseball team is 19-14, 14-5 in conference play, though, sitting second in the MIAA right now. The baseball team has played really well since conference play started.
Yeah, I wish the weather would cooperate more so they'd have to move so many games around. That'd be nice.
It makes it kind of hard to schedule who can call games whenever they change when they're actually going to play the games every other day because of the weather, and just can't account for it because it's variable weather, just weird. So it's always frustrating.
Yeah, it's April 6th, and I came into the show today wearing a winter coat.
Oh,
yeah.
So
it snowed on me on my drive to work this morning. I'm not used to it on April 6th.
So that's also got to be difficult for both the softball and baseball team. You've got a schedule, and you can just basically throw it out the window. You don't really know when you're going to play. So seeing both the softball team and baseball team playing pretty well so far, as we get to the latter part of the season with all of the schedule changes, because there's got to, with baseball and softball, you're going to get a lot of schedule changes with rain and stuff like that. But this year, it just seems like it's been every single game they try to play is getting moved.
It's brutal.
Somewhere or to a different time. And so these players have to readjust and get ready to go on days maybe they weren't thinking they had to get ready to go.
Well, you got to think, too, these are still student athletes, so they still have classes they have to go to, and you still have practices that you're supposed to have. And when you have a game that you think you're supposed to play tomorrow and it gets pushed back to Tuesday or something like that, then it just messes up your whole schedule, your whole routine, and it's just kind of a nuisance.
Yeah, nuisance is probably the best word you could use for it. And, of course, they had Bilodeau hit the walk-off single yesterday that scored, looks like Shingler scored for the game-winning run for Northwest in the 10th inning. And then, of course, Brad Roberts pitched to Jim in the second game, went all 9 innings, only allowed 3 runs, had 7 strikeouts, only 8 hits allowed. So he was really good in the second half of that game to give their bullpen some rest, too. So he was really good. Northwest just playing well right now on the baseball side of things. And then we'll move to the softball team here real quick as they split with Pitt State yesterday, won the first game 5-2, lost the second game 5-4, and they have Missouri Southern coming up next Tuesday. They've moved those games from Saturday to Tuesday. It'll be 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock. Softball dealing with weather as well. They're playing decent right now on the year. They are 20-12 in the season, 11-5 in conference play, sitting 4th in the MIAA standings.
Yeah, this is something Ryan and I talked to. Well, we all talked about this the other day. This is a team that I think in the next couple of years, they're going to be a team to keep an eye on.
Absolutely. I think this team is going to be really good in the years to come. They've got Rachel Smith, who's just a freshman, who's already established herself as one of, if not the best pitcher in the MIAA right now. And then a group of hitters that is a mix of older girls and some transfers and, juniors, sophomores, that sort of mix. And there are a couple seniors mixed in there, so they're going to have to find some replacements here or there. But, I think they've got a good core of young players that's going to lead this team in the future in the next couple of years. And a lot of that starts with the pitching staff, and a lot of that starts with Rachel Smith. So if you can build a pretty solid team around her, this team's going to compete for a while. Yeah,
right now Smith is pitching a record, which is a record 10-3 with a 2.2 ERA.
Is that good?
So that's pretty darn good.
And that's even after yesterday where she allowed 4 runs in 6 innings. That was her bad outing. She hadn't had a bad outing before that, so that's just a lot of it happening in just that one game for her. So she's been pitching really well this season. And right now, if you look at their standings, they're sitting 4th behind Washburn, Central Missouri, Central Oklahoma. Then it's them. They're right in front of Missouri Western. And they have.
And you know what?
So
they don't play any of those top 5 teams for the rest of their 4 series. They're going to have a chance to build some serious momentum heading into that Washburn game, missing the top 5-6 teams in the conference.
Yeah, so definitely a lot of chances for Northwest to pick up some wins down the stretch in softball. We'll keep an eye on that. We're going to take a break. Unless you guys have anything else to add about the softball or baseball teams. The teams around the diamond doing well right now for Northwest. The spring sports doing well. I think the track and field, the women actually won the track meet yesterday in dominating fashion. The men finished 4th. Third.
Men finished 3rd. The women had several athletes hit NCAA provisional marks. Audrey Wishman dominated the high jump.
No surprise.
We had Jordan Hammond won the 400-meter hurdles and hit a provisional mark. I know the men's side, Kevin Schultz that won the high jump on the men's side as well.
Yep.
So there were several athletes, and there were several others that I think I'm forgetting, but several athletes that showed out really well yesterday and hit those NCAA provisional marks.
And you had Mercedes Isaacson Cover. She finished first in triple jumps at provisional mark as well. So those were your 4 athletes.
Isn't she a freshman?
I believe so. Yep, freshman from Elkhorn, Nebraska. So
the
she's been really
program,
good this year. So.
Future of that program looks bright as well.
Yeah, because the men scored 95.5 points. The women scored 170.5. And next closest was Sioux Falls at 55.5 points. So they dominated the track meet yesterday. I actually worked the shot put. There was a girl from Sioux Falls who did throw 47 feet in shot put.
Wow.
So, yeah, that was impressive.
That's
I was
a big number.
Yeah, it's 14.35 meters.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot. So
I think in Iowa, like the state champion throw last year was maybe 45, 44, if that. I mean, I don't remember. I have to go back and look.
We're in serious territory here of especially with Northwest Track. Scott Lorick's done a really good job with that program and made both these programs very competitive over the last few years and will continue over the next few as well.
And their next meet is next Friday up in Kearney, Nebraska for the UNK Loper Invitational. So be able to check them out there. So we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about Villanova winning a national championship in dominating fashion next here on the Weekend Sports Kickoff. And welcome back in to the Weekend Sports Kickoff. I'm Devin Albertson, joined by Trevor Mater, Jacob Blair, and Ryan Elliott. It's time to talk about Villanova winning the national championship this year in men's college basketball, second time in 3 years. And guys, it was a pretty dominating fashion. They kind of rolled over Michigan. Michigan had a lead early, but once Villanova took it, they did not give it back. And Villanova kind of rolls to a national championship there. And Jay Wright has that program rolling right now. And Trevor, I know you talked about this earlier in the week with me. People doubted him about 4 or 5 years ago, and that's not looking so great now, that doubt of Jay Wright.
Yeah, they look pretty pathetic now, don't they? I mean, and I kind of custom this to all the clowns out there, that are saying Tony Bennett at Virginia can't win, Virginia should move on, yada, yada, all that crap. That was Jay Wright 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, up until when they won the national title, the knock on Villanova was always, they get a top seed, but then they get beat in the second round. I mean, they couldn't even get to the Sweet 16.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we talk about Kansas, how they'll get past the Elite Eight. Villanova couldn't get past the second round. And the year they win it all, the first time, they weren't even the best team in their region. I mean, I don't think they were better than that Kansas team. I think everything that could go right for them in that Kansas game did. This time around, it was clear Villanova was the best team in the nation, and it showed. And this Nova team is one of the best college basketball teams I've seen in my lifetime.
Yeah, they're really good.
And that's one thing that, we talked about a few days ago was that, throughout the scope of this season where there was so much parity, there were so many different teams that we thought could have an advantage come tournament time. Throughout all of that, the one team that we all constantly said was, this team beat this team, these guys beat this guys, but you know who I think is probably the best team in the country right now? No. Every week we said Villanova.
Well, I picked Villanova to win it all because I thought they were the least flawed team. When you looked at the rest of these top teams, when you looked at Xavier, when you looked at Virginia, when you looked at Kansas, when you looked at Duke, I saw weaknesses in them and Kentucky that kind of made me kind of squeamish a little. But when I saw Villanova, I'm like, I can't really find their weakness.
They don't have a true big, but then they just stretch the other big out and they shoot threes.
Then they got Eric Paschal, who's 6'10" and can dominate down low and shoot well from the perimeter as well. So this team is, like I said, historically, I don't know how it ranks historically when you go back to like the John Wooden teams and stuff because it's a totally different ball game. But when you look at the teams of, let's say, the last 20 years, I have some statistics here that a friend of mine compiled from a website called KenPom.com. It's a website I'm super into. And they measure offensive efficiency and defensive efficiency per 100 possessions. Villanova had the highest combined score, one of the highest combined scores in the history of a statistic, which goes back 2001, 2002. The only teams that ever scored higher were Kentucky in 2015, Duke in 2002, and 2008 Kansas. So only two of those teams have won a title. Kansas did and Villanova did. So this was a historically effective team.
Yeah, they were really good.
Yeah, they were, at the very least, certainly probably the best team I've seen in the last 20 years. Now, the greatest college basketball team of all time, in my opinion, will always be the 1976 Indiana team that went undefeated.
That.
But you look at the last 20 years is a fair window to give him. You look at the last 20 years, it's hard to find a better team. You talk about maybe Florida during that 06-07 season.
I would say 07 more. 06 they were like the 3 seed coming. They set up Villanova in the Elite Eight that year.
Right.
The North Carolina teams with
North
Hansbrough and Lawson.
North Carolina 09, and I would say Kentucky in 12. With Anthony Davis and Lamb, and the team that beat Kansas when Kansas really didn't expect to get that far.
Yep.
So they're up there when it comes to that.
Absolutely.
And, I mean, man, that was.
They put a clinic on the Final Four.
It was incredible to watch. I mean, Michigan didn't play a bad first half at all. And when you look at the end of the first half, they're down by 9. I mean, Michigan did everything they could in the first half. It wasn't enough. The second half, shots didn't fall for them. They got in foul trouble, and Villanova was able to take advantage of it. And DiVincenzo caught fire.
And throughout the year, I said a couple times that I didn't believe in this Villanova team. Well, one thing I forgot is they weren't very deep midway through the season because they had injuries throughout the season. Well, those injuries were not part. They are all back for the tournament, and you could see the depth in this team. The way this team moves the ball around the perimeter. Everyone can step out and take shots. Again, just like you guys said, this Villanova team was impressive, especially in the tournament.
And the depth is why they didn't win the Big East outright. That's why Xavier won the Big East. Even though Villanova beat them twice head-to-head, they weren't as deep, so they couldn't go through the whole season as flawless as Xavier did. But when we got to the tournament, they had more overall talent. That's what kind of won it through as they went through this whole tournament. They were just a better team.
I think this game put Jay Wright in the Hall of Fame.
Got 2 championships.
I mean,
only the 2 other guys right now.
2 championships in 3 years.
You have Coach K and Roy Williams, the only guys with multiple championships right now in college basketball besides Jay Wright.
I mean,
it's good company.
Jay Wright I've always been a huge supporter of Jay Wright. I've always really liked the way he's done things and just kind of his attitude of, if you don't like the way I do things, then that's fine. I mean, how many one-and-done players has Villanova had?
Not very many.
They haven't had any that I can think of.
And one thing I want to say is championships aren't the be-all, end-all of all this.
No,
absolutely not. Bill Self's a tremendous coach. He only has 1, but
John Beilein doesn't have any. And
these guys are.
John Beilein's a Hall of Fame
Mark
coach.
Few doesn't have any, but they are still great coaches.
Yeah.
So it's not one thing, but it definitely puts you in a different class when you win multiple there.
And you look at how they played, too. When you go back to the North Carolina game 2 years ago, there's people that said, well, that was a fluke. It was a lucky shot. There were a lot of bad calls in that game. This one was not a fluke.
No.
It was clear that
they rolled through the whole tournament.
I mean, they were one of only a handful of teams that won every tournament game by at least 10 points.
Remember when we said Alabama might give them struggles?
You guys did. I did.
And me and Ryan may have.
Yeah.
But
this was just an incredible clinic.
It happens.
That they put on. And this team's going to be just as good next year, I think. When you look at they lose Jalen Brunson, most likely. I think he'll go pro. I don't know why he wouldn't.
Bridges.
They'll lose Bridges, who will be a lottery pick. Omari Spellman may or may not come back. It depends for him where he's projected to go in the draft. But then you have Dante DiVincenzo, who was the most outstanding player of the tournament. He'll go from the bench to the starting spot. You also still return Eric Paschal. A guy that I've been kind of impressed with is Colin Gillespie coming off the bench. I think he'll kind of step up. Plus, you got a 5-star recruit in Jerron Quinterly as well. That's one of the highest-ranked recruits Jay Wright's ever had at Villanova.
There's a reason they're one of the top 4 teams coming back next year with them, Duke, Kansas, and Kentucky.
Yeah. Well, and I'm gonna say the top 4 teams next year in some order will be Duke, Kansas, Villanova, and Virginia.
Virginia.
Yep.
I know
look out for Gonzaga too. That Gonzaga team's gonna be dangerous next year.
United be Zag.
I think Auburn could surprise some people next year too. So
yeah.
I mean, it was,
and then there's the typical suspects in North Carolina, Michigan State, those guys.
K-State brings back everybody.
Yep.
Yeah, but so does everybody in the Big 12. So
not necessarily everybody.
Oklahoma.
I think Barry Brown's going to put his name out there in the draft, but he'll be back. I'm sure. But
so Big 12 will be good next year again. Anything else in the championship game with Nova? Just kind of their run through. I know Texas Tech probably gave them the best game, but other than that,
yeah. Well, and this they played the right way against the right teams. You look at, they didn't have to, they really kept up one foot on the brakes against Radford and just coasted that whole game.
They could.
They tried against Alabama, but they coasted that entire game too because they could. And then, they get to a team like West Virginia, and they just played the right kind of game. They got West Virginia in foul trouble. They got, They made it tough on them. They were able to break the press all the time. You get to a game against Texas Tech, and they played good defense against a team that can score. And then you get to a team like Kansas, and they shot the lights out.
Yeah.
And then by that point, they were feeling it. By the time they got to the Kansas game, and by the time really the first 6 or 8 minutes of the Kansas game had gone by, they were that this was their year.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we'll never see a team shoot like that again.
I missed the very beginning of the Villanova Kansas game. I turned my radio on. It was like, it's 22-5. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What?
I just want to point out
What?
that the things I said about the Villanova Kansas game prior to the game were entirely correct.
And by the
I
way,
knew Kansas would have the advantage on the inside, and they did. They had an incredible advantage on the inside. In fact, that was the only place they could score. But nobody saw Villanova shooting like that.
When you look at their side of the bracket and who they had to play, everything stayed generally normal. They didn't, run over everyone because there were upsets and they ended up
they didn't play
playing.
Marshall. They played West Virginia.
Yeah.
They went through and they had to play all the teams they were probably supposed to play and took care of business. Where if you look at Michigan, they didn't play anyone inside the top 5 seed until they got to the championship game.
The underdog story.
They were the ultimate. Michigan and Kansas, the 2 true underdogs.
But
in the Final Four.
I will say that
You're trolling over there. I like it.
That the Villanova didn't play a great basketball team until they played Kansas. Because West Virginia was not a great basketball team.
I don't know that I'd say Kansas was great. I think Kansas was really good.
By the time they had hit the Final Four, Kansas was officially a great basketball team.
Beating Duke like that. Yeah. They're right there.
That I will agree that you get to maybe mid-February and they weren't a great basketball team, but by the time they had hit the Final Four, they were a great basketball.
With the way
team.
Newman was playing, they were, and they did miss out on
And
Purdue
you know
with
what?
Isaac Haas in the
Yeah,
injury.
so they lost the first 10 minutes of that game by 16 and played Villanova even for the rest of the game.
Well, and the part that sticks out to me is there was a run there. I can't remember when it was, but Villanova was up by 14. Kansas scored on 5 straight possessions, and they were down by 17 after that. Because
Right.
Most of the time,
so,
if you score on 5 straight possessions, you're down 14, you're going to chip the lead probably down to 9 or 10 at the very least.
So if Villanova doesn't hit 18 3-pointers and shoot 55% from the field, this is a totally different basketball game because Kansas played really well.
Yeah.
And really defensively played fairly well. Villanova was just hitting ridiculous contested threes. But, anyway, back to the point I was making is that the teams that Villanova played were the teams they were supposed to play, but they weren't great basketball teams.
No, but, not many people played great basketball teams before the Final Four.
Yeah, and of course, some guys are very committed to going to the NFL. You have Colin Sexton announced today.
Colin Sexton's going to the NFL? What?
I thought Nick Saban would get a hold of him
I
before.
think you're being sarcastic here. So.
You said NFL.
Oh, NBA. Sorry. Duval. Okay, I'm like, why are you surprised here? Okay, I got you now. Malik Newman also declares for Kansas. Jonte Porter put his name in the hat, but did not hire an agent like the other guys did, so he could still possibly come back to Mizzou next year. Also, I think Vic for Kansas also announced.
What do you think of that, Ryan, being a Kansas fan? Because I think Malik Newman's got a
Newman
shot.
going to the NBA
No,
draft?
Vic.
Oh, Vic.
I think Newman's got a legit. Newman
My
will be a
question
first-round
is,
pick.
I don't know
probably.
has Vic hired an agent yet.
No, but according to a report from the Kansas City Star, he told his mom he's 100% sure of the decision. So maybe that means he's going to.
This is where his stock would be at the highest. So
Yeah.
that's where it kind of is right now.
By the way, guys, Joe Lunardi finally has stuff to do again. Because after the brackets come out, nobody cares about Joe Lunardi. He's got his first bracketology for the 2019 NCAA tournament.
And your mic is off. As we're going to take a break.
Duke, Kansas, Gonzaga, Villanova, the ones.
And now we're going to take a break and come back. We'll talk about Notre Dame women's basketball next here on the Weekend Sports Kickoff. Bring you Jersey Day. It should be a lot of fun, be the last show we have for the semester. You can catch recaps of this week's spring sports on Bearcat Update right over here. And for other episodes of the Weekend Sports Kickoff, the best show on KNWT, click down here.